Who are we most excited to draft this year? That and more this week on the couch. The return of Evan Silva. We're going all the way back, old school couch. First, who gets us excited? Who are you making sure you leave your draft with this year, Evan?
Yeah, especially relative to cost, because Ricky Pearsall is still in a very affordable ADP price
Mm-hmm.
range. I love taking Ricky Pearsall. I've been doing a lot of best ball drafts, and he's one of my highest owned players. He was my highest owned for a while until his price started to come up because he was going in like the 80s and 90s, and now he's coming up to like the 75 to 80 range, and I still have him ranked 63rd overall.
Mm-hmm.
So I still get him quite a bit, but not as much as I used to. But first round pick. If you look at Matt Harmon's reception perception over his final 4 games, he was crushing against man coverage. Love to see that out of a guy who had to, come back from a gunshot wound
Right.
and took, needed time. I mean, when you're recovering from a gunshot wound, it's hard to exercise, so he had to get himself back in shape. This is a super high efficiency offense consistently, no matter what, no matter the state of their offensive line, no matter their quarterback, Kyle Shanahan always runs an efficient ship. The seas have kind of parted, I believe, for Ricky Pearsall, with
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Ayuk sort of out indefinitely due to a severe knee injury. I don't even know what to expect from him when he comes back, because it seems like he and Kyle Shanahan, I mean, they have like a personality conflict. I believe they've clashed multiple times since Brandon Ayuk became a 49er. Jawan Jennings with this calf injury, I don't know if it's real, but I mean, there's a real contract dispute going on there. That at very least has allowed Ricky Pearsall to rack up reps with Brock Purdy. I believe that Brock Purdy is coming off his best season. A lot of things crumbled around him last year, and he still played at a very high level. I know that the 49ers were not, relevant, so the spotlight was not on Brock Purdy, but I think that Brock Purdy is absolutely a legit starter. And I think that this team, I think that we're going to see a rebound from the 49ers, especially with their schedule. They have what by many metrics is the easiest schedule in the NFL this year. And I think that Ricky Pearsall is going to be a big part of the 49ers getting back to that. I think that when the 49ers drafted Ricky Pearsall, they envisioned him as the future replacement for Deebo Samuel. I don't know that he's going to be, even 85% of Deebo Samuel, but you give me 75% of Deebo Samuel and that ability to win against man coverage and a lot of available opportunity and targets in the San Francisco offense in a high efficiency environment. Ricky Pearsall, I think, is going to continue to. I think he's going to crush his ADP, even as his ADP has risen.
Right. The way I would put it, Evan, is as we're getting closer to the beginning of the season, there are players like we just obsess about ADP. Like we're thinking about where players. This is important, right? Like you have to know where you take a stand, but you also have to have an idea of what everyone else thinks, and that's how your draft plan comes together. And then as soon as the season starts, we're like, oh, this guy should have been drafted like 3 rounds higher. Like Ricky Pearsall should have been a 3rd round pick. It's obvious. He's going to be kind of like a Terry McLaurin level presence in the San Francisco offense, which, like you said, is a rich environment. And I love that you bring up the gunshot, just because Mike Tomlin and the moving train, he was banged up a little bit last year in camp and preseason too, and then he comes in this year with the hamstring. He missed a lot of the offseason with the hamstring, started camp, but it shows you the high level, like you said, of skill he already has for him to make that kind of impact late in his rookie year after missing so much. Uh, Absolutely, we should not let our imagination limit what Ricky Pearsall, like 1,400 yards. I mean, he plays 16, 17 games. That's not outlandish at all. You mentioned Brandon Ayuk, and like you said, one of the weirdest things about Ayuk is the marriage. Maybe this is one of those ones where like they should have got divorced because there were like a reluctance there that now the team has to live with. But that's something that Pearsall can absolutely kind of catch, like draft, like a race car with as Ayuk is fading, Pearsall's coming on. What about the other two? Because I'm finding myself excited to draft George Kittle. Like, if he's there in the 4th round, Evan, there's a lot, and I'm excited to draft Jameson Williams in the 4th round. I'm excited to draft George Pickens in the 4th round. You should be going into your draft hopefully excited to draft multiple players in each round. Kittle's one of them for me. What do you think?
I think he's an auto click in the 4th round. I'm right there with you. I mean, and he is starting to get a little bit older. 31, 30. This is, I think, will technically be his age 32 season. But man, I mean, there have been no signs of fall off with George Kittle. He led all tight ends in yards per route run last year. He's just an absolute beast. I mean,
Yeah.
I think he's going to be in the WWF when he retires
Yes. Yeah.
from the NFL. Like I think he may already have a contract in place with
Mm-hmm.
the WWF. But I mean, yeah, and he's always been a guy that has lived off of 5 or 6 targets a game. And now I think he's going to have the opportunity because of the seas parting the same way I mentioned it
Right.
for Ricky Pearsall. If we can get George Kittle into the 6, 7, 8 target per game range, like
Look out.
look out. I mean, I think he could challenge Brock Bowers. I have him ranked a little bit ahead of Trey McBride. I think that Trey McBride is almost near consensus tight end 2. I think that George Kittle's a lot better player than Trey McBride, and I think that just from at least from an efficiency standpoint, I think he's going to crush Trey McBride. And then if we can get that bump in targets per game for George Kittle, I mean, all bets are off.
Right. He's one that influences. There aren't many commandments at this time of year. I think the discourse in our circle, Evan, has gotten more nuanced where we can say, like, we project certainty, but we all understand we're dealing with probabilities here. But I can almost say, as an edict, don't draft Brock Bowers or Trey McBride. Don't. Just don't. 100% of the time, don't. Because then you can't draft George Kittle. Unless you want to do some crazy tight end premium, maybe. But I wouldn't do that outside of that format because that's how compelling Kittle is. And like you said, some of it is just not just the persona, but the persona is compelling. It's him or Rob Gronkowski as like there's like being an archetype, like a Hall of Famer, and then there's the guy that is the true like Greek god of the position, like took the biggest position to the Platonic ideal, basically, like Mount Olympus. That's George Kittle because he's great at everything that a tight end does. He's great at everything a tight end does. And then I love the Joyful Warriors. I love taking Joyful Warriors on my team, and you can share in that greatness. Okay, but the elephant in the room, if we're gonna because the seas have parted, like you said.
To stay
Go ahead.
on Kittle though,
Yeah.
my favorite Brandon Thorne story was when Doug Gottlieb was going on this rant about why George Kittle isn't like much of a blocker, and then Brandon Thorne just sent
Oh,
Doug Gottlieb this reel of George Kittle just blocking out the sun, like
right,
melting
right,
face
right, right.
mask as a blocker, and it was great.
Yeah, I think doesn't he have like a dog rescue farm or something like that? He just maybe
He
opened that
may,
up,
yeah.
like a 5 acre, like for like dogs that life has been hard to just kind of hang out in a nice farm. He's just the man. Okay, so but the elephant in the room with this parting of the seas offense, and I think you're right too that we should always take a moment out to say, of course, Kyle Shanahan, but also Brock Purdy. As the Mr. Irrelevant. What I like about this, especially for fantasy, Evan, is you could tell they let him take it out for a walk a little more last year. He could play closer to the razor's edge, and he was comfortable there. He was able to play outside of structure more, and we know he's mastered the structure. But what about Christian McCaffrey? And before I hand it off to you, what I really like about fantasy drafts this year, Evan, is that in the first round you have to take a stand. You have to. You can't. There's no ADP arbitrage.
Absolutely.
There's no like, well, make sure to draft a running back or make sure to draft a wide receiver. And there's even level tiers of like 5 players, mixed up running backs and wide receivers, whether you're in the front half of the round or the back half of the round. And it's not even clear if it's better to be in the front or back half of the round. It's just that. If someone said, what draft pick do I want this year? Like, there's not a clear. It's not because you have to take a stand. And Christian McCaffrey, I think, embodies that more
Yep.
than anybody. We have now a sample. No news is good news. I don't know if you're sitting like 7, 8, 9. You better have clarity. Give us some clarity.
Yeah, and I think that you say that, and I agree with it because this is an awesome, awesome first round. I mean, it's hard to poke holes in almost anybody in this first round, and I would say that even extends to pick like 17.
Hmm.
I think that the first 17 players, I mean, you could mix them up almost any which way, and that requires because they're all awesome picks, and then that requires you to take that stand because everyone's awesome, so
Yeah.
you got to pick your favorites. So you have to like almost come up with nitpicks to push guys down. And, there is a nitpick with Christian McCaffrey, and that's that he's going to be 29 and a half years old when the season starts, and that he is coming off a season where he ruined your fantasy season if you drafted him. And, that's pretty much it, though. I mean, he's got a lot of mileage on him. I mean, in the NFL, they used the crap out of him at Stanford, too. So he's got a lot of mileage on him, and he's almost 30. I have him at number 11 overall. So I never ever get Christian
Right.
McCaffrey, and it scares me. I mean, I'm not going to lie about that. I mean, again, I think that the 49ers are in for a bounce back season. Christian McCaffrey is like a Hall of Fame level player, but I think that you can nitpick him a little bit more than the running backs that I have ranked ahead of him, and it just comes down to that.
Yeah, it's tough. It's real. I mean, weighing Derrick Henry against him, Ashton Genty, um, and another player. It's really interesting to watch in real time. I mean, we've kind of come full circle, Evan. I mean, you and I've been doing this together for a long time, uh, and the information edge doesn't exist anymore. And even the different layers and levels of analysis and angles, like everybody has all that at their fingertips now. You want analytics, you want tape, like film-based analysis, and et cetera. So, experts on teams and so on. So we've come full circle back to like take your like who do you believe in? Who do you want to be on your team? Like you have a team, you're picking your players for your team and not getting into all these tricks and shortcuts. And so like you said, we're nitpicking. So a player there in the second half of the first round, and we talked about Shanahan, so we have to talk about McVay, right? And Matthew Stafford and his back. And, you know, do we trust Jimmy Garoppolo and Sean McVay enough that you see Puka Nakua now there in the second round? You see Devontae Adams in the late third round, Kyron Williams in the late third round. Are we putting our faith in McVay and Garoppolo this year?
Oh man, this is really really tricky, and I think it's maybe the most impactful situation going on right now as we speak because the Rams keep saying that Matthew Stafford is going to return to practice this day or that day, and he keeps not hitting the timelines that they set for him. Jordan Rodriguez, who is
Yeah.
awesome, covers the Rams. I think she's actually considered a national reporter at this.
Yeah.
Yeah, but obviously she covered the Panthers and then she covered the Rams. I mean, super in depth. Like no one goes harder than Jordan Rodriguez on covering a team. And I mean, she's like friends with Les Snead. Like I think they like talk all the time. So she has like legit info, and she said that she would be concerned if Matthew Stafford was not back by August 5th for the Rams intra squad, uh, you know, uh, scrimmages with I believe that with the Commanders maybe, and Matthew Stafford was not back by then. And then the Rams said that that Matthew Stafford was going to be back on Monday. Recording this on Tuesday, and Matthew Stafford was not back by Monday. And Matthew Stafford has a history of back problems. And Matthew Stafford is 37 years old. So it's really scary. I think especially for Devonta Adams, I do think that Jimmy Garoppolo would be good enough at getting the ball to Puka Nakua in high percentage situations for Puka Nakua to pay off an early second round price. We want Matthew Stafford in there for Devonta Adams, no questions asked. And so that he's like a really scary click now. No matter where he is on the board.
Yeah, that's fair. It's interesting too that Devontae Adams said because they played together, Garoppolo and Devontae on the Raiders, and he made sure to say, "Oh no, like we're good. Like he was Jimmy Garoppolo was not the problem." And I can't remember who it was that reacted said, "Oh no, but Stafford's back must be bad, must be really bad." If that's what
Yeah,
Devontae Adams is saying, and you're right, Puka. He just might be one of those dudes. I love sometimes Evan, you hear something and it just sticks with you. And Greg Branos is amazing doing Coach Speak Index. And every time I talk to him, I want to put out there like someone needs to be doing Player Speak Index. And it's not as easy to like measure it for reliability, but just compile this stuff because I think it was Jared Verse who's awesome. Jared Verse is like easily should become one of the faces of the NFL.
I was gonna say, like, look at what his odds are for Defensive Player of the Year, and like bet that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
He's awesome. And him telling the story about working out with Aaron Donald is also fantastic, like must see stuff. But he said I think it was a day that the secondary was having a good day in practice. And he was talking up how the secondary was having a good day. And he said they were doing good against everyone except Puka Nakua because he's a psychopath. So maybe it doesn't matter. I mean, Puka Nakua might be, and again, like the moving train, like he missed all that time last year with that knee issue, and then when he came back, he was better than he was as a rookie.
what an unbelievable turn of events that was last year.
So,
I heard
yeah.
from a scout one time that the guys, where did he go to college again?
Oh my gosh.
Puka Nakua. Oh my God,
Um, like Utah?
we're gonna have
No,
to
no.
cut this out.
Right, I know it's
Cease,
the old man brains. Ha.
cease, cut this out.
Yeah, right.
um, oh, BYU.
BYU, not Utah. BYU. Sorry.
Yeah, I knew it was somewhere out west. And the scout was like, the guys at BYU were surprised that Puka Nakua made it in the NFL because that guy never worked out. That guy did not go into the weight room. And I mean, he went in the 5th round. Like he was
Right,
far
right.
from a lock. You know what I'm saying? And it could have been because like he's a good player, but like he doesn't work out. Well,
Yeah.
he obviously doesn't need to go to the weight room. But that's just kind of a funny story.
Oh yeah, no, he's different. I mean, that's the point. Like the rules that apply to other guys just might not apply to him. And yeah, Devontae Adams, it gets tough. Again, like we talked about George Kittle. I think again, Jamison Williams, George Pickens, real interesting guys that I'm starting to look at. If we're worried about Stafford, Devontae Adams still has it for sure. But you're right. I think that Puka is the one that might be less affected. All right. Let's go through a couple other the more compelling stories where it's easy to take a side, right? Because I'm seeing, I guess I was a little taken aback, but that I adjusted to pretty quickly that more than not, often than not, Saquon Barkley's not running back one, and sometimes he's not even running back two. And I guess this is like escape to where the puck's going to be to not where it's been. There's 480 plus touches last year for Barkley. Jahmyr Gibbs, and what more can we say about him as far as how he's translated to the NFL? And then Bijan Robinson with Michael Penix, maybe is this offense going to really be credible? What could that potentially mean? How do you sort these three out? Can you sort these three out?
Man, Michael Penix. I mean, the ceiling of Michael Penix is really fun to think about because he can really, really sling it. And he showed us flashes of that in his 3 starts. I thought he looked pretty good for the most part. Drake London had like 190-yard game or something like
Right.
that in there, and we need to get Darnell Mooney back. I think that he matters because he's a guy who can win downfield, and that's where Michael Penix throws the ball the best. And there were some kind of not 100% encouraging comments from Raheem Morris about Darnell Mooney this morning,
Right.
actually. Yeah, so we'll see about that, and we'll see about Kyle Pitts. I mean, Kyle Pitts is 24 years old. He should be the healthiest that he's been since his rookie season when he had over 1,000 yards. Um, So I think that the pieces around Michael Penix are a little bit questionable, with the exception of Drake London, who, by the way, Brian Baldinger was at Falcons camp last week, and he was like, I've been going to training camps like for the last 30 years, and I've never seen a practice where every single ball went to Drake London. Just I've never seen a practice like that where just one guy was getting the ball on like every single passing play. But I mean, that offense is starting to look like it's going to be very, very concentrated, though. But with Michael Penix, like I bet him to lead the NFL in passing yards at 30-1,
Mm-hmm.
and to go over 4,500 passing yards at 13-1. I think that I like that one the best. But yeah, I mean, the ceiling of Michael Penix is like leading the NFL in passing yards. Like I think that that's within his range of potential outcomes. The other topics were what now?
Like, well, just how do we sort out? And I like Penix. I mean, I think you're right to cast Penix as a dude who isn't going to be what we saw in the 3 starts. He's not going to be overwhelmed at all. He's going to dictate. He's going to dictate some things to the defense, especially when he has someone like Drake London to throw to. And we'll see about Kyle Pitts. But it's sorting out. Like, say you pick third or fourth or fifth, and you may have to sort out Bijan Robinson,
Mm,
Jahmyr Gibbs, and Saquon Barkley.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have, that's my first tier of running backs. That's probably the vast majority of people's first tier of running backs. And I actually have Jahmyr Gibbs first overall right now, but I was drafting him so much that I started to take Bijan first overall just to hedge a little bit. Now I'm thinking about moving Bijan up ahead of him because I think that this could be that Bijan year, where he just goes ballistic. I mean, we saw Jahmyr Gibbs go ballistic last year,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I also think that with the new offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson was really good at distributing the ball. Getting um, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, keeping those guys involved. Um, obviously getting the ball to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jamison Williams goes over 1,000 yards. Tim Patrick had a few moments. They used the highest percentage of 2 tight end sets in the league. And I just think that, the new coordinator, John Morton, I don't know that he's going to be focused on, distributing the ball as much, and he's going to want to get the ball to his best players and Jahmyr Gibbs. And I have lots of love for David Montgomery, but Jahmyr Gibbs is like way better than David Montgomery.
Yeah.
So, that's and also the Lions have the 3rd toughest schedule in the NFL this year. So I don't think they're going to be winning 13 or 14 games. I don't think they're going to be blowing teams out. And if they have to play from behind or in competitive situations more, they're going to play their best players, and that's going to be Jahmyr Gibbs. And then with Saquon Barkley, it's the touch count. I have him as the 5th overall player. I rarely get him, although I don't never get him. But it's hard to get Saquon Barkley at 5th overall because he usually goes in the top 4. But I mean, he is 5 years older. Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson were born like a month apart. He is 5 years old. Saquon Barkley is 5 years older than both of those guys,
Right.
and coming off this massive usage season. So, and, has never really strung together 2 healthy seasons in a row himself. So that again, we're nitpicking, okay? Saquon Barkley is a great fantasy pick, no question. But when we're forced to nitpick, I'm going with the guys that are half decade younger, and that's Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs. By the way, I'm saying that right, right?
Yeah.
Bijan,
Right.
Bijan,
Oh, Bijan. Yeah.
Bijan.
Yes, that's right. We got to when players ask, then we got to do that. I know Tedero McMillan's mother, I think, wants us to say Tedero, so we're going to do that too, out of respect. Always respect to the game. So, and I like the way you cast it. I mean, look, you're still ranking Saquon Barkley 5th. So this isn't like, well, Saquon Barkley's going to break down this year, avoid him in the first round. Because like we talk about, the second half of the first round is pretty compelling. The players you can take there too. Uh, so we're not saying that. We're just saying that when we have to split hairs between these top 3, the 2 are on the upside of their career. The other is at the peak of his career, not necessarily in decline. And if Barkley ends up being the number 1 running back again, which obviously he can, it might just be because like a player this good in a situation this good, it just doesn't happen that often. That's the part. And Derrick, and the thing that applies to Derrick Henry too. That's why Derrick Henry can get even better this year. we might look back and say Derrick Henry was actually the pick. Derrick Henry has 25 touchdowns this year, something outlandish that seems outlandish. That's what's fun is every single one of these 6 running backs in the first round, Ashton Genty, you can make a case for, and we will look back and say, like, that was the best pick out of the 6, any of them. And then the same thing goes for the wide receivers. But I want to stick with running backs because there's more polarizing. Okay. We have a week of Breece Hall in the preseason. It kind of matched what we should have expected. Yet he's still going to stay in the 3rd round, Evan, because there's going to be somebody in your draft that's like, I know that dude balls out and whatever the plan is and whatever. I've seen him. If I can get him in the 3rd round, I took him in the top 5 last year. I'm going to take him in the 3rd round this year. Are you going to give that guy a high five or just kind of shake your head?
No. To me, Breece Hall, like, the best outcome for him would be for him to get traded to like Dallas or something like that. Because this isn't adding up to not a great situation. I think there's a chance he could get out carried by Braylon Allen. Braylon Allen is coming like a freaking freight train, like a 235-pound freight train. This is a guy that went to Wisconsin as a linebacker and was like, I think he was the youngest player drafted last year. So he is still, he's still in his developmental phase. So, we don't know what his ceiling is like because he's a pup still. Mm-hmm. And it should not shock anybody if he goes from a player who was like pretty good as a rookie to like an absolute beast in his 2nd season. Anybody in the NFL will tell you like players tend to make their biggest jumps in their 2nd year. And that should especially be the case for a guy that's that young, like Braylon Allen is. To me, like, one of Breece Hall's biggest strengths is his pass catching ability. And I think that that's not going to be utilized in this offense because, first of all, they're just not going to throw the ball. They had 39 rushing attempts in their preseason opener. And Justin Fields on 3rd down, he does one of 3 things. He throws the ball to his first read, which is not going to be a running back on 3rd down. He's going to take off, or he's going to take a sack.
Right.
He does 3 things, and none of them involve throwing the ball to Breece Hall.
Right.
So timeshare, reception concerns, and how many touchdowns are the Jets going to score? And isn't Braylon Allen going to get the ball at the goal line? Like, this is just not adding up to me on paper with Breece Hall, even as a believer in his talent. Like, I want to see him go to a different team.
Yeah, I think you're right that there's just too much to row upstream against for Breece Hall, and it's not ideal, and certainly at this point you're just ignoring all the prevailing trends. Now the prevailing trends in terms of ADP continue to push Omarion Hampton up, like past Breece Hall, and certainly now in that 3rd round mix. What's our level of excitement there?
Yeah, I think that he's an auto click in the 3rd round. Omarion Hampton, 3rd round. George Kittle, 4th round.
Right. Profit.
Fast forward to and then we can go home.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm kidding. But I think that, yeah, this is. I don't even know, like, well, because the Najee Harris situation. I talked to a guy who's an eye doctor, and I told him that this guy, Najee Harris has been out for like a month, over a month, and he's like, routine eye injuries heal within like 3 days. That is a very quick healing part of the body. The fact that this guy's eye is not healed in over a month, I don't know. That's not good, and the Chargers have really given us no reason to believe that he's going to be back anytime soon.
Right.
It's almost like they've been hiding him.
Yes.
And I don't look at their running back depth chart after that. Kamani Vidal, this looks like, and Greg Roman historically has definitely ran committee backfields. I just don't know who else are they going to involve here. Omarion Hampton he caught a ton of passes at North Carolina. He had 2. No other North Carolina player was drafted this past year, and Omarion Hampton was still just lights out as a producer. this past year. I mean, that tells you something. Like the defense on every play was keying in on Omarion Hampton, and he was still doing big things. I mean, the speed score is out of this world, can catch passes. I mean, I think it's adding up. Like, offensive player that or offensive rookie of the year type season for Omarion Hampton. So I think he's an auto click in the third round.
The opportunity should be there, and I just can't get past that. He never, when I watched him, he never really impressed me. He never really there was he's kind of linear. Caleb Johnson,
Mm.
similar. Quinshon Judkins was kind of similar. And they
Well, Caleb
didn't.
Johnson, it seems like, is having some struggles. What about the Rashawn Slater situation?
Sure.
Um,
Well, go ahead.
yeah, see, to me, like Brandon Thorne does our offensive line analysis, and he's the best. I put him up against anybody. But man, he sunk the Chargers from like a top 10 offensive line to number 25. And I was like, man, is Brandon overreacting? Because they can, Joe Alt was a two-time first-team All-American left tackle, as recently as not this season, but the season
Right,
before.
right.
And I mean, they can move him, and then they have Trey Pipkins, who, I mean, I know he's not good. It's a big downgrade, but I mean, you still have, like, maybe an All Pro or Pro Bowl caliber left tackle. This is not a situation like if the Bucks have to play games without Tristan Wirfs, they have to go with Charlie Heck
Right.
at left tackle. That is a huge problem potentially. I think the Chargers can absorb this.
Yeah, I don't think. Well, I also think there's an unknown with the Chargers of Justin Herbert, if he can stay healthy. Like, how much does that elevate the offense as a whole? And are we just generally underestimating Justin Herbert? It's really fun to watch what Jim Harbaugh is doing with him. It's like the psychological, like the mind games that Jim Harbaugh is playing with him. I think in Herbert's interest. And going back to what you said really quick about the Najee Harris Hampton thing, I mean, every time they ask Jim Harbaugh, he's just like, "Oh, he's on the team. I don't know. Ask the GM." I mean, really, like you said, the
At
box,
one point, he said, "Oh, we're praying for him,"
right?
and I was like,
Um,
"Oh boy."
yeah, and it does seem like just really almost. I mean, I'm down here in New Orleans, and I feel like was there some sort of like hex put on Najee Harris or something? I don't know, man. It's a weird situation, but one that's going to open the door for Marion Hampton. Okay, let's stick with rookie running backs really quick because two other rookie running backs, and by the way, I do want to say. As we go back to rookie hype, that you're right that maybe we should pay more attention to second year players because they're the ones that we're not as excited to draft, and they're the ones that actually can show that big leap from year one to year two. But let's let two rookies that had big weekends in terms of the bull case to draft them. RJ Harvey was basically the running back one
Yeah.
for the Broncos, and then Travion Henderson. If you're like, hey, Travion Henderson is like going to blow things up a la Jahmyr Gibbs, then the way he looked in his first preseason game did nothing to dispel that. So I think Henderson now you have to start thinking about in the fourth round. Harvey you have to start thinking about in the fifth round. Again, more players to get excited about drafting. That's the theme.
Yeah, these are two exciting guys. Have you talked to Cecil about? Okay, so it's funny how our world works these days.
Right.
With RJ Harvey, somebody asked Benjamin Albright about, or mentioned to Benjamin Albright that uh, RJ Harvey had started, and obviously, he was like the sole first team running back in the first preseason game, and then Ben Albright responded, "Yeah, it was supposed to be J.K. Dobbins starting, but he couldn't find his helmet, so he wasn't out there." So, all the analysis that goes into RJ Harvey dominating the first team reps could be null and void if it was just because J.K. Dobbins couldn't find his helmet right before the game.
Right. Perfect. That's right. You always
Yeah.
check your sources, right?
Yeah.
With Travion Henderson, and he's had more of an
Shot
ADP
out of a
leap.
cannon. Oh my
Right.
God.
Right. So is this one again where George Kittle's gone? Are we reserving a pick for Travion Henderson now, looking at him as a fourth rounder, but somebody who can even clearly exceed that?
Yeah, that's a little early, I feel like, and I mean, again, shot out of a cannon. It's just I kind of think that Ramondre Stevenson is still a pretty good player, and Josh McDaniels has a very long history of multi-back usage. But I mean, Travion Henderson is fun. He's fun. I think that this offense could be fun. I think that Drake May has a chance to take a really big second year leap. I think he's a stud, and he's going to bring. If that happens, he's going to bring guys along with him. I mean, he has, I think, the potential to like elevate players around him. Fourth round's a little bit early for Travion Henderson. I mean, I get it though. I mean, it's okay to swing for the fences, and he's a fence swing. I just don't think that Ramondre is going to go away.
Yeah, just respect for Omarion Stevenson. And again, coach speak, right? I mean, when the names that come up are Shane Vereen and Danny Woodhead. Now, Shane Vereen and Danny Woodhead and more, and I think there's an acknowledgement there by Josh McDaniels. But it just at the beginning of the season, we'll see where things stand, like week 8, week 9, and week 10. But Ramondre Stevenson can do enough to show that he shouldn't be swept aside in the roles that he's probably more physically gifted than Henderson, short yardage, and he's a good 3-down back too. All right. Last running back we want to talk about, and this is another one of those injury situations, right? Because Clint Kubiak was super excited to get Ken Walker. We know that if the dude could just stay on the field for 16 or 17 games, now he became a pass catcher last year, and there was nothing indicating that part of his repertoire was going to go away under Clint Kubiak. Kenneth Walker absolutely could put together a top 6, top 8 fantasy season. Again, we could watch Kenneth Walker for the first 2 or 3 weeks and say, oh, he should have been a second-round pick. We should have been taking him when we were taking Jonathan Taylor if he could just stay healthy. And now he's not healthy, Evan. And then the other thing starts to become like, now do we start steaming Zach Charbonnet up the board? Part of me feels like, like Zach Charbonnet is just staring at you in the 8th or 9th round now, especially if you do a draft strategy, a build where you slough your running back 2, you get your top running back, the hero running back, and you say, and then I'm going to hammer away, George Kittle. And then there's all these receivers that you can take in the 5th, 6th, 7th round. Like there's a rich vein of wide receivers that you're going to like you said, Ricky Pearsall. That was a great one. Chris Olave is available in the 6th round. Chris Olave in the 6th round. You might even like Deebo Samuel, speaking of Deebo. And there's Roma Dunze. I mean, there's so many guys that, again, we could watch for the first month and say they were going 2 or 3 or 4 rounds later than they should have. So how, we're guessing that's what fantasy football is, right? Making these stands on incomplete information and pretending we can predict the future. Where are we at this moment, Evan, on the Seattle backfield?
Yeah, this is a tough one, no doubt. And it comes down to Kenneth Walker's health, because I think that when he's healthy, he's the main back, like a 65% to 70% back over Zach Charbonnet. But he, like you just said, he's not healthy. He's dealing with this foot injury that is apparently a recurring thing. Like he's had this problem before. And the offensive environment is definitely not, you look at any offensive line rankings, the Seahawks are going to be bottom 5. And, Sam Darnold, Sam Darnold had a really nice season in a really nice environment last year. And now he's going to an environment that's pretty questionable. New offensive coordinator, who I think will probably do a pretty good job in Clint Kubiak, but he's a new offensive coordinator. And he, Zach Charbonnet has been out there every day and Kenneth Walker has not. So, there are places in the draft where I'll draft either of these guys. It's usually past their ADP because there's a lot of moving parts here and uncertainty.
Yeah. Damian Martinez. Just remember the name Damian Martinez, right?
Hey, he's an interesting guy.
Oh, yeah. This is the year of the 7th round running back. I love the 7th round. Like to me, the question isn't will a 7th round running back make a fantasy impact this year. It's
Yeah.
like how many of them?
It feels like right now one of them's going to do it.
Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt
Yep.
is like, Evan. I mean, I wonder if the people out there like to watch the Olympics. I love watching the Olympics. And you have those sometimes the track and field races where they're coming down the stretch, you can just see somebody's got that momentum, and that's what Krosky-Merritt feels like in a Washington backfield now. So yeah, that's a good one to get out there. Is like, and we're to that time. I did a draft with Dave Kluge, NFFC main event draft. We live streamed it last night, and it was like the 13th round. I'm like, this is about where you take Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, and he's like, well, the ADP is like in the 200s, and then Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt went like 2 picks before us or something like that, right? So the point is, you got to take these guys like 11, 12. Like don't get cute with it, because the potential reward is massive. So you can't talk yourself out of, well, I'm going to try to win at the margin here and I'll kick it down the block another round when it's a player like Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. And then we're going to see how Kyle Monungai, we're going to Brashard Smith, I think, just keep him on the waiver wire watch list at this point. We could be coming back to him, and then Damian Martinez we mentioned also. So because Kenny McIntosh's injury, and I think Damian Martinez had a really good day in pass pro too. That just is like, these things catch your attention. As we got a few more minutes before we go off the rails, what else? Look, real quick though, while we got, who's your quarterback? Who's the quarterback you're running up the most with so far?
It started out Justin Fields because, I mean, he could finish as a top 5 fantasy quarterback, and you could get him at quarterback 12 for a while. And then I think people woke up to that. I just think that they're going to run the crap out of him. And I mean, we saw in the first preseason game, like, I mean, he already has an 1,130-yard rushing season with 8 rushing touchdown season on his resume. If he throws for 20 and he runs for 1,007, he's going to absolutely crush any quarterback 12. But he has been starting to come up. It has started to be Dak Prescott, because I think that the Cowboys are built to throw the ball. I mean, they don't have like a workhorse running back on their roster right now. And if they go get Breece Hall, great, because Breece Hall would give them another pass catching weapon. But I think that this offense is going to flow through CeeDee Lamb, and George Pickens is killing it in practice every day. And I think that Jake Ferguson, he had 71 catches in 2023, the last year that Dak Prescott was healthy. Their offensive line, they've dodged some bullets on their offensive line. I think that if the offensive line stays together, they could have a top 5 offensive line. They've invested a ton of draft picks into that unit. And I think Dak Prescott, I mean, he's a guy who could lead the NFL in passing yards.
Yeah. Well, you see him in the same vein as like Joe Burrow, basically, as far as how he can get there to a top 5 fantasy finish, boosting him in leagues with 6-point pass touchdowns, 300-yard passing game bonuses, and so on. And then I'm finding myself again fascinated with George Pickens. I really, I continue to toy with the idea, Evan, that we could see him make a leap that it's much greater than anyone's anticipating in terms of how his talents translate to production, because he's been having to, again, to row upstream against adverse conditions, and now he's going to have the wind at his back. So this is fun. And Dak Prescott has been a top 5, top 6 fantasy quarterback already in similar circumstances. So all of this I think
in Dak Prescott's last healthy season, 2023, he was second in NFL MVP voting.
Right. Yeah. So it's this. He's like quarterback 11, quarterback 12. I'm finding myself taking a lot of Jalen Hurts too, just because I one of the things that is like a building block in my preparation this year is the Eagles are going to pass more. It's just math. Like, they're going to pass more this year. Jalen Hurts is good. Devontae Smith is good. AJ Brown is good. And AJ Brown's ADP has fallen about like 6 or 9 picks from last year. Devontae Smith has fallen like 2 rounds from last year. And I think it's just a reaction to a season where everything went perfect for the Eagles, and it's just not going to happen again that way. All right. What else? Last, before we just get off of the off ramp here, like, what else has your attention from the last couple of weeks? What else is making you go back to the drawing board and say, do I have to rethink this?
Well, I think that on any fantasy show, you got to talk about Tyreek Hill.
Ooh.
Because and I want to get your thoughts on the
Okay.
Tyreek Hill situation first, and then I can counter or just add what I have, because I just want to you're one of the smartest dudes that I talk to every year, and I just want to get your take, because and you're a vibes based person,
Sure.
you
Sure.
have good instincts, and so I want to hear what you have to say about Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, and it's really been stunning how the Dolphins went from like this massive efficiency production adding offense to one that was futile last year. And we're trying to sift through the pieces and figure out. Well, I mean, Devin Achan is still going at the same place. So I'll just step to these really quick. Devin Achan, honestly, I'm taking Bucky Irving and Chase Brown over him at this point. Like if I'm at a point on the clock where I'm looking at Devin Achan, I'm probably like talking myself into taking Brown or Irving over him, just because this offense, and you got Tyreek Hill shooting his mouth off about short yardage, Jalen Wright short yardage problems, Alexander Madison, who probably was going to do the short yardage carries, he goes down now. The offensive line was a bigger worry for me earlier in the offseason, but it sounds like Patrick Paul is ready to play. Savanea, I think, ready to play. So that could be okay. But still, like I look at this whole thing, Evan, like in the movie when like the car like puts the brakes on right at the cliff, and then like the front of the car is like teetering over, and they're creating the suspense, like, oh, and the car like boom falls into the canyon and
Yep.
explodes. Like that's kind of what I feel like the Dolphins are right now.
Yeah.
You know, and Tyreek Hill's part of that. And Jalen Waddle, I'm fine with in the 5th, 6th round, because the trade of Jonnu Smith now opens up some weird like funhouse doors where Jalen Waddle can absolutely catch 100 or 105 passes, and 5th round ADP again, another receiver in the 5th or 6th round that is like, okay, I'll take that in the 5th or 6th round. 5th, 6th round or wide receiver rounds this year. And so I'm okay with Waddle, but now we get to Tyreek Hill. And um, if you like metrics on hitting top speeds, because it was his wrist shouldn't affect how fast he can run. He wasn't as fast as he was in the past. Um, and then you have the Tua, and I'd love Tua. Like, he's a real sweetheart. I mean, I think it's like rare that we would say that about a football player, especially a quarterback. But him being really frank and saying like, "Hey, our relationship is we're working on it." Basically, because saying like Tyreek is growing up. He's saying something to that effect. But all that stuff makes me think like, I mean, when it comes right down to it, Evan, when I'm drafting a player, I'm trusting them. Again, we're just back to like, who do I want on my team? I don't want Tyreek Hill on my team.
Yeah. And I was trying to think of any positive bit of news about Tyreek Hill. When was the last time that anything positive
Yeah,
happened
like 2
with
years.
Tyreek Hill? And it was probably the end of the 2023 season.
Yeah.
He was at 1.7 yards per route run last year, the lowest of his career. If you read Matt Harmon's reception perception, this is a guy that clearly is in decline. He's 31 years old. He almost got arrested outside the Dolphin Stadium before a game. He's clashed publicly with his coach and his quarterback repeatedly. I mean, Tua, as recently as like a week and a half ago, is like, yeah, we have to repair our relationship. Um, couldn't we have already done that? He's Tyreek Hill has acted kind of crazy on social media. And I don't know where his head is at. And I don't know if he's going to be a member of the Dolphins by the
Right.
end of the season. I actually think that the Chiefs should try to trade for him.
Right. Right. So it sounds like we are one on the same mind on like, no, don't even bother Tyreek Hill. I mean, and some,
I can't click it.
yeah, I think David Dodds. Oh, it's amazing. What's up, David Dodds? One of the co-founders of Football Guys. Eliminate the suck, I think, was his article. And a good place to start, like on your ADP list, is just taking out your black marker, your Sharpie, and just putting it through certain names. And Tyreek Hill is absolutely one of those names for me. And that's the way it's going. Now we'll go off the rails. And first, I'm going to monopolize this. But excitement. Excitement is the theme today. Well, let me tell you, the excitement at my house right now is that we're on baby turtle watch. I think when you came, I might have showed you the turtle pen in the back. We're up to like 20 some turtles back there.
Oh my God.
We're hybridizing them. We have an eastern box turtle, and then we have like hybrid eastern and western desert box turtles. And early August is when the eggs hatch. Nature does its thing, and they bury the eggs. And these little guys are not parented. Okay, they hatch from their egg under the earth, and they dig up, and then they're like on their own. They're like, okay, I exist now. Like, there's no one to tell them what to do. They kind of lay low. You can tell, like, they've been around for 40 or 50 million years. They've survived like crazy extinctions. I have a ton of respect for them. I was in New Mexico, my old stomping grounds, and I loved horny toads when I was a kid. I used to collect them up because they're so docile. They'll let you pick them up. And I build Lego houses for them. And then one of them had babies in the house, and my mom said no more. And but I was looking for some sort of horny toad representation when I was in New Mexico, and a Navajo man said, "Oh, grandfather," like they called the horny toad grandfather. And when that box turtles have been around for 40 or 50 million years, um, they're like our ancestors. All these animals are our ancestors when you get right down to it. That's not even like poetic talk. That's real talk. But it's exciting, Evan. Like for real, like the miracle of life. Like when I see one of the babies, because we have like a little nursery, so they don't have to compete with the big ones for food. And like I'm genuinely like childlike excited. Like I yelp. I come into the house if anyone's here, and it's exciting. And then you feel the immediate like I must protect this thing. I must protect it. I must protect it. But what's something in your life right now that excites you? Like genuinely excites you?
Oh man. The well, I don't, man. The Chicago Cubs. They're
Yes.
I, I mean, I what well, we've been going through kind of like a rough patch because the Milwaukee Brewers are the greatest team in the
Ever.
history of Major League Baseball. And obviously they're in our division, and the Cubs have the fifth best record in baseball, and like it's like every day we lose another game to the Milwaukee Brewers because they never lose. They've either won 9 or 10 in a row right now, and the Cubs just lost 2 of 3 to the Cardinals, and now they got to play 8 straight games
Mm-hmm.
against teams that are in first place. They have 3
Mm-hmm.
games against the Toronto Blue Jays, and then 5 games at Wrigley against the Brewers because there's a doubleheader in there. And I don't know if excited would be the right word, but like, that's, fantasy football is like work,
Right.
and then the Cubs game and all, I have it like on like in the background while I'm
Sure.
working.
Sure.
But, I'm like, I'm excited every day to listen or watch
Absolutely.
them because it's kind of like my outlet.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I my first love was baseball. I listened to the Pirates on the radio. I had my
Yep.
little book that I would like erase and update the stats. I wanted to be the play-by-play announcer for the Pirates. That's part of the story of like how we get here to this moment right now. And I think having a baseball team, and you're a season ticket holder, which takes it to a whole other level, but having a baseball team, because it's every day, it's like 6 days a week, right? There's a devotion. It's like going to the church and like putting or going to the cemetery and putting like flowers on your ancestor's grave or something where like you're faithful and you get to know the players. I mean, you really like they're like a family in this weird way. And you like they're players like I'll mention like Pete Crow Armstrong, right? Like I mean, just captivating, like an absolutely captivating player, like entering stage left for this team. And the
Yeah.
Cubs, of course. The other thing, of course, is the Cubs, and I mean, yes, they've won a World Series now, which I think opened the portal to the Trump years, but that's a whole other story. They won a World Series, but before that, and it's certainly if folks don't remember the Red Sox before, and yes, we're doing baseball talk because baseball is a beautiful sport. It's poetic, and there's a giving of yourself. Like you said, it's not necessarily being excited, but it's being so emotionally invested that you're like surrender. It's holy. I mean, it's like
Absolutely.
it's more of a religious thing where like football's like bacchanalia. Football's like the festival, like paint your face and roast some meat and get all intoxicated on like the gods. Baseball's like going to church every day and saying your hymns and keeping the candles lit, and you get it connected to your team in a way that I think is what you're describing that's happening. But then with Chicago, you have the long suffering fans. Like that's Harry Carey, right? I mean, it's like, well, we know the Cubs aren't going to do anything that we're going to be proud of, so let's at least have a good time at the ballpark. So yeah, here's the baseball. I'm a Pirates fan, which is like the ultimate, like, well, Mark Cuban didn't buy the team, so we're just not even in purgatory. Like we're kind of in the waiting room for purgatory.
Yeah, dang. They got a beautiful ballpark.
Yeah,
They got some fun
the
young
best
players.
pitcher in baseball, and the team still
Yeah,
sucks.
and yeah, and they can't win. Even when they got Paul Skeens on the mound, they
It's
can't win.
I mean, he is seriously like Paul Skeens is something out of Top Gun. You know, like he's some sort of 80s action hero who like
He
walked
is.
onto the mound. And the Pirates, and then the O'Neill Cruz is like Predator. O'Neill Cruz is also like, so I mean, you can tell I'm a kid of the 80s and all of my imagination is just pop culture. But you know, he's like you saw in the home run derby, like the
Yeah, I was
players.
gonna say he is going to win a home run derby before all is said and done.
And the players know, right? Like they consider him a peer to Ellie De La Cruz. They consider him a
Yeah,
peer to Fernando Tatis. Like he's in that fraternity of baseball players. But the Pirates, it just have the stink of loserdom around that team, no matter what. They've done like they're doing like stats of futility of like Paul Skeens is having like the best start his career a pitcher has ever had in terms of ERA, and he has a losing record. And that's how it is to be a Pittsburgh Pirates fan. But much like football, like I went to Pirate games with my dad. One time we went to Wrigley Field. Every year we would go to a different place, and that was like a big part of our relationship. It was intentional, but it was in hindsight like accomplished exactly what it was intended to accomplish. Baseball, I think, is a backdrop. Football can do this too, for male, like positive, healthy male relationships and a family, and it's like good shared memories. And then you have like, so tell me real quick, last thing before we go, like give me one really quick story about being a season ticket holder, because that's a whole other way of having like a new family.
I would say it's just the ability to you know take my daughter to games.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's just super super fun. And below our seats, there's like this little club that you can like go down and get food in, and everyone that works there like knows her.
Ah.
And last year when she went to games, they went 12. The Cubs went 12-2,
Ooh.
and this year she's only been to 3 games, but they're 3-0 in the games that she's been to. So they call her the good luck charm,
There you go. You just
and they treat her like a little queen, and that's really fun to see. I mean, and I moved a mile and a half from the stadium, and we walked to games, and
beautiful.
that in and of itself, just walking to games is like a great experience, and that's going to allow her to like know the streets. All
Oh
right,
yeah, yeah.
we go to Wolcott, we take a left onto we take a left onto Paulina, then we're walking down Belmont, and then we go to Addison, and baby, we're here,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
and so she's going to know that, for the rest of her life, because that's what we do.
It's so beautiful, and baseball is part of this too. Because I always thought when I was growing up, if I just had a job where I could watch baseball while I'm doing the job, then I have it made. And boy, brother, do we have it made. And then like that's why we sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." Harry Carey again, rest in peace. Because it's just like the idea of like when you're at the ball game, all your cares go away. Like we get to have a nice day, and walking to the park. I had a dream when I was a kid about walking to a baseball game. I lived in a little podunk coal mining town. Pittsburgh was the big, big, big city where I grew up. And my sister and her late first husband got a place on the south side, and I actually walked to a game. I may or may not have ingested some substances that are things that you ingest when you're of a certain age, and that was like a truly a dream come true. Evan, it's a dream to have a chance to have the professional relationship we have, and the relationship we have with all the people that support Establish the Run and football guys. It's a great pleasure. It's a privilege. We've been doing this for a long time, and
Long time.
this is what keeps us coming back, is that we feel the love and the acceptance, and hopefully you feel from us the love that we have for you, because, we couldn't do this without you. Really, we couldn't. And you're so classy.